Welcome in to the JMU Sports News Podcast. I am Bennett Conlin, and I am joined by Jack Fitzpatrick after the Dukes beat UVA.
Dukes beat UVA. I'm still recovering in my voice from all of the cheering, all of the craziness that happened after a 72-minute rain delay. Oh my goodness, what a weird game it was. And I don't want to bury the secondary lead here. Dukes drew against UVA on the pitch. So it wasn't exactly what you wanted, a football win, but it was
Undefeated.
It was undefeated.
Yeah, I think that's basically the same, and I will count it.
I mean, that's extremely fair. Something else that is extremely fair is $3 Minuteman Mondays.
Yeah, 3-Notch in Harrisonburg. We love them. Shout out to them. You got the $3 Minuteman pours. Tuesdays, you can get half off cases at the Valley Collab House in Harrisonburg. And every Friday, you can join 3-Notch for the first Tap Friday, as they release a new beer every Friday, which again is very impressive to me that they're whipping out some new flavors, some new brews once a week. We love 3-Notch. We're excited to get there in mid-November, I guess.
Mid-November. Also want to say that those beers on Friday, if I'm not mistaken, are $3. First Tap Fridays
I think that's
are
right, yeah.
$3 beers. Also really pumped to say that on November 17th, 5 p.m. will be our live podcast from 3-Notch Valley Collab House right there in Harrisonburg, Virginia. There's a men's basketball game that night at 7 p.m. So come over, pregame the game a little bit, get a couple 3-Notch brews, try out their Fresh Tap Friday, First Tap Friday, and listen to us talk. It'll be a little bit of a different format. We're still working through all of that, but it will be a live JMU Sports News podcast. We are absolutely pumped about that. We're also pumped about the fact that football is back. And BetOnline is your number one information source for all of your sports wagering info with all of the up-to-the-minute stats, news, scores, and matchup breakdowns. Get the latest game odds, spreads, and totals from the NFL and college football all at your fingertips with BetOnline's real-time updates on statistics, news, and odds. From week one all the way to the postseason and the big game, BetOnline gives you access to the best football promotions and contests available anywhere online. Head to the website today, betonline.ag, or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Remember to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's promo code BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Throw $100 in there on your first deposit. They'll hook you up with $50 for free. BetOnline, where the game starts. And where Virginia starts getting engaged, well, folks, it's right here.
There's a reason Christopher William Jewelers has been voted Best of Virginia year after year. It's not just one thing that sets us apart. It's everything. It's the selection, extensive and unmatched, with every engagement ring, loose diamond, and fashion jewelry chosen for quality and brilliance. It's the service. From our diamond experts to our master goldsmith, our team shares a passion for what they do, and it shows. It's the atmosphere, both glamorous and laid back. See for yourself why people can't stop talking about Christopher William Jewelers in Harrisonburg and Weir's Cave.
Heck yeah. To beat UVA.
I've been looking forward to this podcast since we beat UVA. Absolutely electric game. Where do you want to start this podcast? There's a plethora of places we can start this podcast. We can talk about secondary. We can talk about the rushing attack. We can talk about offensive line. We could talk JMU fan reaction. We can talk our reaction. Where do you want to start this bad boy?
Maybe with us a little bit of our reaction to the win, 36-35 victory. I think the reason the game excited me so much is obviously the in-state tie, right? Before the game, you've got mixed tailgates with JMU and UVA fans. It was just an awesome experience. I think the fans on both sides were interested. I know some UVA fans were like, oh, it's your Super Bowl. UVA fans cared a lot about the outcome of that game. Like they went from like, oh, wow, we've got something here. Like maybe we're not as bad as we thought, to losing and being doomsday. But the reason this one will always be memorable for me is not only did JMU win the game, I thought they were going to blow out UVA in the first quarter. In the third quarter, I was fully under the impression JMU would lose by 30. And then in the fourth quarter, they won by a point. It was a roller coaster of emotions.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been on a roller coaster of emotions like that before. And we were talking as we were leaving the stadium. The App State game last year was an awesome comeback, 28-3. Absolutely fantastic. But there was never a point in that game that I truly felt like, oh, App State is like the far superior team here.
I did a little more in that one, but
Really?
this one was, I was worried 28-3, but there were definitely some stuff where it was
Well,
like, oh, short fields, right? And like,
in 28-3, it was just like, oh, okay, there's been like our mistakes have really helped App. Maybe
Yeah.
we're not to the point we thought we were, but like our mistakes have really helped this lead happen. Georgia State, it was like 3 muffed punts, and you're like, okay, we're better than them though. In this game, there was 3/4 of the game essentially from like when they scored 17 points to the 11-minute mark in the fourth quarter, where I sat there and I was like, UVA is better. Like in every facet of this game, they have just vastly outperformed us. Now, I've rewatched some of the highlights of the game. ACC Digital Network had like a condensed game that I was able to watch in 11 minutes, and I rewatched it and I was like, oh, I don't remember us being this good. I think I just went straight doomsday the second the momentum shifted.
yeah, I was very doomsday in the stadium for sure. Even as the comeback was being completed.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen you that doomsday.
And until the final pass hit the ground, which I did not think it was
Which-
going to hit the ground.
That should not have hit the ground. That was we have to
Johnson
talk
got
about
cooked a little bit, but that's okay. That's Demeek Starling's like a track star, so I'll give him a pass there. But what a silly game. Obviously, the pass defense was horrendous. The tackling was iffy, but offensively, some good things. Special teams, some really good things. Running game got going with Lawton in the fourth quarter, and I guess the end of the third a little bit as well. Just an insane, wacky game, and huge for JMU that they pulled it out.
I'm shocked that they pulled it out. I do want to go to this point of it. Is it something in the fact that there's been like these big games and there's just these offensive lulls from the Dukes in these massive games? UVA, they get up 14-0, and then really the offense doesn't come alive again until 12 minutes left in the fourth quarter. There was this in the App State. Like in big games, it seems like JMU goes on these lulls. Is that something I should be more afraid of?
Signetti talks a lot about like the consistency and like we've been a consistent program. I've never seen a team look elite and then look horrible more often than this team has the last 2 years within the same 60 minutes. Right?
Within the same quarter. Within the same quarter.
They'll just get like jumped like 28-3 by App State and then like slowly grind their way back. Or this one, they jump out to a 14-0 lead and then don't do anything for 2 full quarters. It's confusing, but I think on the positive side, they've shown the ability to play at that elite level for stretches too. It'd be cool if there's like maybe a middle ground, right, where they're pretty solid over a more consistent stretch, which I guess they have done in some other games. But it's Jekyll and Hyde within possessions.
Well, it's kind of funny. Signetti in his, I think it was at yesterday's press conference, he goes, that was a C+ game by us. No, I think that was an A+ game with about a D in there, and then finished out with like an A. I don't think it was
So like in total, I guess it's the C+. What a weird game. And then as you see on the screen, right, you've got 395 total yards for each team.
But then you look at the breakdown, it was 228 pass yards for JMU, 167 rush yards. Very good to put up those types of numbers, in my opinion, against a Power 5 school. I don't care that UVA is on the downturn. UVA is an offensive line away from being like competitive.
I don't think they're that bad. Yeah, I really don't.
They were that bad. UVA, though, 377 yards through the air. Anthony Calandria went 20 of 26 with 2 tutties. The freshman making his first start absolutely shredded the Duke secondary. UVA could not run it, but Tony Elliott and Des Kitchens were hell-bent on running the ball, especially in neutral down situations like 1st and 10. They finished with just 18 rush yards. Key to the game that I didn't realize, UVA was only 4 for 13 on 3rd down.
They started, I think this is interesting on the 3rd downs. I think UVA started 4 for 8, and I think they didn't get their last 5, something like that. And I think JMU started like 2 of 8 or 2 of 9. So late in the game, the 3rd downs completely flipped on their head, which was huge. But yeah, like UVA wasn't sustaining a ton of drives. It was just like they would throw a pass and either the guy would be wide open for like a giant chunk play or the guy would break one tackle or three tackles and like a short pass would turn into a 50-yard gain. So a lot to work on for JMU's secondary, I would say.
Yeah, 100%. On a quick side note, I did put in a pot pie right before this podcast started. I have to go and run and take it out. So we will step aside for a very, very quick break.
There's a reason Christopher William Jewelers has been voted best of Virginia year after year. It's not just one thing that sets us apart. It's everything. It's the selection, extensive and unmatched, with every engagement ring, loose diamond, and fashion jewelry chosen for quality and brilliance. It's the service. From our diamond experts to our master goldsmith, our team shares a passion for what they do, and it shows. It's the atmosphere, both glamorous and laid back. See for yourself why people can't stop talking about Christopher William Jewelers in Harrisonburg and Weir's Cave.
And we're back. So sorry about that. That was a pot pie. I did not allot my time properly.
I did not have that on the podcast bingo card. Quick aside, and I was like, oh, he's got a comment about the offensive line or something. He's like, I put in a pot pie. What is that? That's my favorite podcast moment ever. Clip that. Quick aside, I put in a pot pie.
And we'll be right back with how the JMU UVA game ended.
I reflexively said, sure. I can't wait to listen to that back. I was like, sure. As we all, who amongst us doesn't have a pot pie cooking in the oven?
Doesn't everyone have a pot pie cooking? But offensive line, I'm glad you brought that up. We can talk about the JMU offensive line here. Offensively, I didn't think, like on the rewatch, maybe I was just so down bad during that game. I didn't think, I thought the offense was terrible. And then on the rewatch, I was like, that offensive line, it did kind of what it needed to do. And McLeod looked very good when he had, like, there were occasional times that the UVA D line got through and got to him quickly, but that's to be expected against that like good defensive line. And that may be one of the best defensive lines that JMU faces all season. When he was getting 2.5, 3 seconds, he was dotting up that UVA secondary.
Yeah, there's some offensive line play in there that was really good. There was a spot or two where Ben Smiley, who's this guy UVA loves and thinks he has a ton of potential in the defensive line, was just looking like a child against Nick Kidwell.
Yeah.
I mean, he was bodying him. Like I think Lawton, like his 30-yard touchdown run or 27-yard, whatever it was, great blocking on the outside. Kidwell set the edge perfectly. So like the run blocking post rain delay was phenomenal. I thought the pass blocking all day was pretty good. There were a few plays where like I thought McLeod hit receivers on what would have been like key third down conversions where they probably could have made a catch and they dropped it. There's the one Reggie Brown had that they originally called a catch and then went back and reviewed and said it was an incompletion where McLeod hits him in the chest, he catches it, and the defender comes in and pops it out. So there are a few plays like that in the passing game that if they go JMU's way, I think the offense stays on the field, gets things going. I also think they did well with Signetti kind of having some like boneheaded fourth down decisions.
Thank you. Well, that was the perfect segue. There's been some questionable coaching decisions early this season.
They've got, so in the first half, they're up 17-7 and it's like 4th and 5 at like the UVA 40 or maybe the 37 or something like that. It looked like they were thinking about going for it. Instead, they take a delay a game to punt, nearly down the punt at the 1. Hansen hits a perfect punt. They kind of butchered the fielding of the punt, which was frustrating. But okay, like kind of conservative in that spot. But I guess I get that you trust your punter. You don't like that. You wish.
No. Keep. I'm going to respond to what you're about to say. I know where you're going with this, and I got ahead of myself. That's not good podcasting. Go ahead.
The other one, with the momentum sort of slipping UVA's way, I think Kurt Signetti got a little pressed. 21-17. They're at like the UVA. They're like their own 20. Sorry, they're in their own territory. It's like 4th and 1. Rolling the dice there is risky. I don't totally hate it. Like every now and then, if you want to be super aggressive, like fine. They call a screen pass, which relies entirely on Zach Horton landing a block He didn't, and somebody else was also over there that was unblocked.
And it was a bad pass.
And the pass was high, but it was one that like a confusing decision that completely turned the momentum even more toward Virginia, which maybe didn't trust the pass defense at that point. I don't exactly know, but both of those were confusing, where the one seems like, okay, you should definitely go for it, and the other one seemed like you should probably punt, and it was sort of flipped with the decision making.
That was the thing. Like, if you're going to go for it on your own 25, 4th and 1, then you have to go for the other. There's no, yes, we're going to do this, but if you had gone for the 4th and 5 one on the UVA 40 and then decided not to go on it on your own 25, 100% okay. But the fact that you went for it on your own 25, it leaves me really scratching my head about not going for it and punting it. Although I will say, to Cignetti's credit, I would have been very interested to hear his answer if they had lost this game. Yeah. But very good answer at the one where he was just like, that was a stupid coaching mistake. Take that one on the chin. I understand it. We all make that play in Madden. You may think you got it, but like there was some questionable 4th down decisions. There was also some questionable taking it out of McLeod's hands at times. Like a lot of 1st and 10 runs.
Too many in the first half, and maybe the third quarter too.
And it felt like at times, especially after McLeod, I think it was Phoenix Sproles, he just kind of missed wide open, just missed him. After that, it seemed like they kind of reeled back the passing attack a bit, and it had been cooking up to that point. I mean, Elijah Surratt early in the second quarter had like a 30-yard gain to get to UVA's 42. That was the drive they ended up punting because of a holding call pushing them back. But the passing attack was cooking early in the first half, and was a big reason why they were able to move the ball so well. And then they ended up just kind of doing run, pass, run. Never really did anything that started with a pass on a neutral down. And I thought that was really interesting.
And they had some good, like when they would let him throw it, McLeod made some big time throws. He had a 40-yard pass to Reggie Brown the first quarter that came on first down. They had a couple others where they would run it with Kalen Black for like a yard or a 1-yard loss on first down. At a certain point, you got to kind of trust the passing game, because Virginia was stacking the box a decent amount, trying to make JMU throw it. I like the receivers too. I was thinking about that. Reggie Brown, Elijah Surratt, I thought had a really good game.
Elijah Surratt had a great game.
Sproles, 7 catches for 40 yards. Hudson had 4 for 46 or something like that. And he also threw a touchdown pass on a nice little gadget play, which the offensive coordinator and Kurt Cignetti should get some credit for there. If we're going to rag on play calling, that was a great one. But overall, it wasn't bad. I just wish they would trust McLeod a little bit more.
Yeah, I agree. I also think Tyson Lawton needs to get more run. I know he was battling an injury at the end of fall camp, so that kind of limited his touches against Bucknell, maybe even limited his touches in this game against UVA. But he was explosive, 9.9 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, had that 30-yard run in a massive moment to cut into that UVA lead. He seems like he's the most dynamic runner. He's a good pass blocker. I haven't really seen him catching it out of the backfield a lot, and that's where Kalen Black, I think, really excels and separates from the pack. But when we're talking pure runner, I think Tyson Lawton needs to get some more run.
I like him getting some touches. I also think Black kind of got, looking back on some of the runs, got like a short end of the stick, where like you look at Lawton's runs, they were giving him nice holes in the fourth where he could get 5 or 6 yards and then break a tackle. Black was getting stonewalled immediately, where like you're probably not going to shed a tackle of a 300-pound defensive lineman compared to a linebacker.
Yeah.
So I think some of that, but Lawton, like, nice blend of speed, nice blend of power. Like, yeah, I'm okay with more than 8 touches for him if he's producing at that level, especially.
Yeah, and early on, Kalen was running into stacked boxes.
Yeah.
Where in the fourth quarter, I think UVA was like, they're going to have to pass to win this. And JMU was like, well, watch this. And it just so happened to work out for them. But so Lawton wasn't running with 9 guys in a box, 10 guys in a box. He was running with it a lot more spread out.
But he to your point, he does a really good job of like knowing where the hole is, hitting the hole. And then he was hard to bring down, which, like, if you have that combination, I think Palmer and Black can do that to a certain amount too. It's a pretty good trio in the backfield. I think Black and Lawton are probably the 2 that are, to me, the most exciting, just because they're a little bit shiftier, but Palmer's been fairly productive too.
Yeah, 100%. And the secondary for JMU, though, if we're going to quickly change gears, as before we welcome on the Troy Boyz, just quickly to touch on the secondary, because I think this is going to be something we talk about with the Troy Boyz when they come on, is what is your panic level for them?
Some of it seemed just like dumb game planning, where JMU was like stacking boxes. I think UVA's receivers are pretty good. Like I think Fields and Malik Washington and those guys and the running backs in space are good players. So I think there were just athletic mismatches. Like I don't think Kobe Pace, who was a very productive running back at Clemson, one-on-one, like in the slot against Torres Jones is a good matchup for JMU. I think Jones is better like playing downhill rather than in coverage. So that's something that concerns me a little bit. Just that they were in those positions. Some of it seemed like just assignment issues. And then also interested to see what they do because it was the secondary and the linebackers. Jalen Walker looked like he was pretty banged up. I know they're saying
he's in a sling and he's listed as a starter. Wait, can we talk about this? He was in a sling, no pass. He was heavily limping at one point. Like when I saw him listed on the 2 deep, I was like, this has to be a mistake. There's no way that Jalen Walker is going to play.
He's a great cover linebacker. So if you don't have him for any extended period of time, I wonder exactly what they're gonna look like coverage wise. Because the secondary and then the linebackers on like speedy guys in space was not going great.
Yeah, and there was points too. I think you mentioned it. Kind of the assignments were whack, but then also there's just like kind of a lack of communication at times. And I don't want to solely rag on the secondary, but I think as this season goes on, if their play doesn't get better, this defense will never live up to its full potential. So like this defense is one of the best against the rush.
Yeah.
Like they are holding opponents to 1.2 yards per carry right now, something crazy. And they did this last year too. This isn't like a one-off thing. And then we watch them against the pass. And I know me and you were talking up in the stadiums. We had the perfect view from section 538. We were like, why is the D-line not getting home? And then I rewatched it and I was like, oh, because Calandria could get it out in 2 seconds or less. And it just
open.
Yeah. And to these wide open guys, like if they were getting off of their blocks, or they even were getting off their blocks and collapsing the pocket and doing all of these things. But then if there's no secondary help, it was just a struggle.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with some of that. Even Meehan's interception was caused by like horrible communication. They like lost.
Yes, exactly.
They lost the guy in the slot or the running back or whatever. And then they ended up, they didn't end up finding him. Meehan just noticed there was a miscommunication and then came running in to make a play on the interception. But it was horrible communication. Calandria goes, oh, that guy's going to be wide open. Meehan jumps it. But it was not like how the play was supposed to go. He just made a really nice heads-up play.
It was, yeah, I mean, I have some takes about Meehan because I think he is a very good safety, and I'm kind of shocked he's not a starter. But that will have to hold on for a second because now we are joined by the Troy Boyz. They are coming on from Troy, Alabama to talk a little bit about this game this weekend. Are we calling this the de facto 2022 Sun Belt Championship? Is that allowed to be said for this game? Can we get the bragging rights?
I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no because we already got the trophy. So,
what if we come and take it after the win? Is that allowed or no?
No, that's why I wore this shirt, fellas, because I wanted y'all to see what a conference championship sweatshirt looked like. I know y'all hadn't seen one yet.
No, yeah, we appreciate that. But
and then
talk to the NCAA.
I wore this hat because somebody needs to corral y'all back into reality. All right, so that's what the Troy Boyz are. The old sheriff is in town, and we got a young upstart that's come into the saloon and is starting a bunch of trouble. And now it's time for us, just like in Tombstone. We got to kick this thing back out into the street, boys. So Troy is here to take care of business. We're glad y'all have had so much fun kicking dust around in the Sun Belt, but it ends today. All right. It comes back to peace and order.
I'm going to be honest. I'm very excited for this game. I've been looking forward to it, I think, since the schedule came out. We've had a great time. I came on your guys' podcast earlier this week. Enjoyed talking with you guys last year, but for JMU fans, if you guys kind of want to say who y'all are, where they can find you and keep up to date throughout this week, getting ready for this, we'll call it the de facto Sun Belt Championship if you guys won't, but no, for this awesome Sun Belt opener for both teams.
Yeah, so the Troy Boyz, we are in our 3rd season officially. We've been doing this probably 4 or 5 seasons. We started in the middle of the dark ages of the Chip Lindsey era. when Troy couldn't win a coin toss for the most part, and have been at it, reviewing and previewing and kind of doing everything you can for Troy as a podcast since then. And Bass, I'm going to let you do the hard work of telling where can people find us on the social media platforms that y'all get me to stay away from.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Troy Boyz Podcast. We made it pretty easy for everybody. And you can find us most anywhere you stream your podcast, Anchor, Apple, Spotify, etc., Google. You can find us most anywhere except for YouTube. That's the one place we don't stream, just because I don't want to open the can of worms of comments.
That's a smart move. We just opened the can of worms on YouTube this season, actually, and it's been a fun time, but it's a different beast. But this game's here. You guys come into it. You didn't seem too excited about your offense last time we talked, and I was a little shocked about that. What can JMU fans expect out of Troy this Saturday, 7 p.m. on NFL Network?
Oh, well, the offensive scheme for Troy has evolved a lot over the last couple of years. Troy has really been known as that NASCAR air raid offense, and that's just not what we are anymore. We're a run-first team now, and that's something that Troy fans are still having to adjust to and get used to. But, Kamani Vidal in the backfield is an easy 4 or 5 yards if we have the right protection up front to make those kinds of things happen for us. So we're currently sitting as a run-first offense, and that's something that the fans are not really used to right now.
Yeah, I think you're going to see an offense that is still finding itself. Troy, and I know you guys are having dealt with members of your fan base on social media. I know you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about, but Troy's fan base has a very loose and occasional relationship with reality. And so a lot of the expectations that people had for the offense simply weren't things that they should have had. We lost a lot of great talent. And it's, in July on a message board, it's fine to say, well, Ray J. Johnson's gone, to play professional football, but we're going to replace him with this 19-year-old kid from, Tumbling Weed, Alabama, which maybe we will. But most of the time, it takes a little more time than that to replace a guy who's such a big part of your offense. So Seabass is absolutely right. You're going to see a Trojan attack that wants to run you over as much as it possibly can. And then just when you've gotten tired of Kamani Vidal running all over you, Gunnar Watson and some of the fresh faces in our wide receiver room start to pick up yardage, middle and deeper down the field. And Gunnar really can make those throws if he has the time. So that's what I would expect to see from the offense.
Yeah, I was curious about that because I know JMU can stop the run a decent amount, but you've got a quarterback room with Gunnar Watson and Goose Crowder, which is an all-name position group. But what can you tell us about Gunnar? It's the starting quarterback. It seems like maybe they rely more on the run, but is he a solid option for Troy?
Joe, I'll let you take that one.
Yeah, I guess I'll take Gunnar, and then Seabass and the rest of the Spartacus Rebels can take Goose Crowder. Gunnar is a 6-year super senior. I like to joke that he's taken 6 years off of professional turkey hunting in Central Georgia to play quarterback for a little while. He has learned a lot and grown a lot over the past 18 months, 24 months. He was brought in by Chip Lindsey, who is a terrible, terrible, terrible coach, and wasn't developed by him at all. And so really when John Summerall got to campus, famously he said that Gunnar Watson couldn't do a pull-up when he got to campus. So Gunnar is still kind of doing development that he should have been doing as a sophomore or a junior, but really is starting to improve. Was the MVP of the conference championship game that we won, in case y'all forgot from a few minutes ago. Gunnar Watson knows the offense back and forth. And certainly knows how to connect. He's got some of his favorite targets back in Jabri Barber. So very comfortable with some guys that he's throwing to. But I'm going to let Seabass go ahead. He's going to have just a heck of a time right now and just talk about Goose Crowder, the Lord and Savior of Troy Trojan Nation.
Hey, let loose the goose. Sophomore Goose Crowder from Gardendale, Alabama. He's a transfer out of West Virginia coming to the Trojans. So, Neil Brown can't keep him either, so we'll take him. He's 13 for 14 on his career, so he really has almost no experience in the grand scheme of things. But he can complete passes when necessary. For the season, he's -6 yards, and that comes mostly off of the last offensive play of the game last week, which amounted in a sack and his 1 turnover. Troy fans love Goose Crowder. I like Goose Crowder, and I'm falling for the problem that is, the belle of the ball is always QB2. It's the unsung hero that when they get the chance to sing, they're not the hero. So I like Goose just because he's sitting at QB2. I mean, that's the end of the story there for me. But like Joe said, Gunner's been our guy forever, and there's a reason he keeps getting put in QB1. It's because he can get the job done when the time comes.
Yeah. Leave it to Bennett. Last week, we had a guest on. He talked all about punters. This week, he asked a question that brings us to the QB2. So really hard-hitting journalism from the co-host right here. But defensively for you guys, a new D coordinator comes in, a little bit of turnover on that side of the ball. Not necessarily a ton, but has there been any change in how you guys feel about that Troy defense? Because it was one of, if not the best unit in the Sun Belt last year.
Yeah, nobody told us that when you have a guy on your team that's the NCAA all-time leader in tackles and then he leaves, that's going to be a problem. That didn't come with the paperwork or anything, but we're figuring that out now. I tap my heels together 3 times, multiple times a game, and wish for Carlton Marshall to be back because just having a guy at that middle linebacker slot cleaning up what gets past the defensive line, that was a huge advantage that I don't even think we fully appreciated when we had him there. I think we're kind of appreciating him more now. I think we're really strong on the backside. Reddy Stewart, I think, is probably the best secondary player in this conference. I know you might have, 3 or 4 fans down in Mobile that want to talk to you about Yam Banks. But I mean, save the yam for Thanksgiving, okay? Because Reddy Stewart is the real deal. And the defensive line still has a ways to come. We're waiting for TJ Jackson, who was preseason defensive player of the year, to see if he comes back. He was suspended, violation of team rules, and has kind of been available the past couple weeks, but still can't quite slide off that naughty stool. You know what I mean? He's in the kitchen, but he's still not allowed to eat the cookie dough with the rest of the kids. So we're hoping maybe this Saturday we see TJ. What are your thoughts, Seabass, on this defense?
I mean, when you lose elite caliber players, you do take a step backwards. And like Joe was saying, we've realized that, and we're having to figure out who we are again on defense. But our defense is still stacked with household names in the Troy Trojan community: Del Pettis, Jaden McDonald, Reddy Stewart, Javon Solomon, Richard Jubinor, Zach Edwards, Luis Medina. Then the list goes on and on and on. Troy has been known to be that defensive team. We were referred to for the longest time as the Wall. And it's because our defense has always been that blue collar style of down and dirty football. And that's been the hallmark of Troy football. And I feel like we're still there. We're just not where we were last year. So fans are a little upset about it, but when you come from the best, it's you're going to take a step back when you lose those players. But we still have a stout quality defense that no one should sleep on.
Gotcha. JMU fans, they've got some very positive vibes after the Virginia win. What's the vibe like for the Troy fan base here at 1-1 after a couple weeks?
The vibe is reality check. And I feel like everybody's got that. When you haven't lost a game in 355 days, that means something. So for it to be the first loss since the loss, as it's becoming known as now for us, we cannot do a single podcast since that loss without referencing it. And here it is again being referenced. The vibe is just, we've lost. What's the next step? and no one really knows what the next step is. Word on the street is Coach Summerall let everyone have it and took everyone, quote, to the woodshed. That would be staff, players included. No one was safe after that loss because that man does not like losing. He gets you fired up. Go watch the behind the wall segments that we post on Twitter and Facebook, and you'll see that he is somebody that he can be really cool, calm, and collected behind a microphone. But when he's at practice and at work, he is in your face and ready to get the job done. And whenever he loses, it's not a pretty picture on the other side of the wall.
Yep. No, for sure. I think Troy's fan base is just trying to figure out what this means. You had a lot of people who I think were overly confident going into a game with a very, very tough Kansas State squad. And, you know, the Troy Boys did our part in the preseason special to say, not so fast, my friend. You know, this is going to be a tough game. But still, you have people that have become very used to winning very, very quickly. And so, you know, I think people are going to flip that switch back really quickly, especially because it's JMU coming to town and because of the relationship that's kind of been formed between our two fan bases, you know, especially on social media. There are a lot of Troy people who are very, very ready for this game and feel kind of like JMU fans disrespected our conference championship. And so I don't know that it would have mattered if we're 1-1, 2-0, 0-2. There, you know, as I said, Jack, when you were on our podcast, these are two fan bases that are meeting up for a street fight, and everybody's just hoping that a football game breaks out. Okay, because there are a lot of hard feelings, and a lot of people, you know, really ready to see what happens on the field and hoping that their team exercises some serious demons against the other. So I think Troy, by now, people have flipped the page and they're ready to hashtag beat JMU.
Yeah, that's a great point. JMU did bring out a sign that said Kings of the East and paraded around and said a lot of things in the offseason. So, yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if Troy's had this game circled on their calendar for quite some time, and they've been ready for this game in a way that I'm not sure JMU has. It's the perfect spot for both teams in terms of Troy coming off of that loss, getting ready for it. They can get up where JMU is coming off of this win over UVA that me and Bennett and fans alike kind of say it might be one of the top 10 best wins in program history. But then they got to turn their attention to Troy, which is going to be a dogfight of a game. So before you guys get up on out of here, I want to see what your expectations are for this game, how you see it playing out, and of course, your score prediction and winner at the end of it.
Ooh, go ahead, Bass.
Oh gosh. To me, the question of the game is going to be, how do people respond? You know, do we get up off of our backsides after this loss and say, so what, now what, move on and take care of business the following week? I know y'all are new around the block to the FBS, but the G5 team beating the P5 team statistically is not a good following week.
Yes. Even for
yeah.
FCS, when we would beat G5 teams as an FCS school the following week, while we didn't necessarily lose every time, there was always kind of a closer game than expected. So 100% understand that letdown.
It's statistically not a good week to follow. You know, everybody remembers the LSU win that the Trojans had, but they don't remember the following week, and that was a loss at home to South Alabama. And they were dog water. It was terrible. Or I'm sorry, kitty water. They were kitty water. And so like, and that's my saving grace in thinking about all of this is James Madison has not really had to do that. Not really had to follow up against the big time in-state win and then go on the road to what would be the conference champion from the following year. You have not had that. Yeah. So I don't know that that's going to play well for y'all. And I think the team with the more experience in that department is going to win the game. Trojans by 50.
Oh, okay. Well, guess we can see who's drinking liquor and who's drinking beer here, boys. So yeah, I mean, I think this is going to be a tough game for sure. I do think Troy responds better into this situation. Troy, Alabama is not an easy place to get to, even if you wake up in Troy, Alabama. Okay, I mean it's a trip to get to, and it's certainly going to be a trip for the Duke Dogs as they come down. The fan base is very behind this team right now. I think Veterans Memorial is going to be filled with folks that are ready to see a big win. I think John Summerall has been on the warpath. That's been all over kind of the media covering this team, is that John has just been raising holy hell with anybody who will listen about what comes next. And so I think James Madison, unfortunately, probably with their heads held maybe a little too high after that big Virginia win, walk into a buzzsaw. And I think Troy gets up early. James Madison tries to surge back, but the defense can't or doesn't allow them to do that. I think you're looking at a final score of like 35-17 with the Trojans winning and everybody having a nice time at the Santa Fe Steakhouse on beautiful Highway 231.
All right. Okay. We'll agree to disagree. I can't wait for this game. I can't wait to have some fun with you guys on Twitter. Win or loss for either one of our teams, I think it's going to be a good time on the socials. Thank you guys so much for coming on the JMU Sports News podcast. Be sure to follow the Troy Boyz on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Troy Boyz Podcast. Thank you all for taking the time out of your night and talking some football with us.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having us. Go Trojans.
Thanks for having us. Go Trojans. God bless you, Blaze Brown.
Absolutely electric.
I was going to say that was.
I'm going to be honest. That was probably one or two of our best interviews, best guest segments we've ever had. Troy, Alabama is hard to get to, even if you wake up in Troy, Alabama. What a quote. Put that on a throw pillow. But I did really enjoy their insights on this team, because something that I think we were going to talk about a little bit later. Ooh, what you cracking open there?
You better believe it's the Minuteman IPA. Oh, there's the turn.
But something that I think we were going to talk about in a little bit, but they really got to it, was like just the complete spot of this game. Pure letdown spot for JMU and a pure get up spot for Troy. You heard Cignetti on the post game, the press conference yesterday.
Yeah.
He was like, these guys aren't completely tuned in. Whereas Troy, I bet they are so locked in. So really will be interesting for this game. I think it's going to be a close game. I don't know who's going to win. That'll be for our Sunbelt Pick'em in a little bit.
Yeah. Should we get to news or snooze?
Do you want to do, is news or snooze UVA related, or do you want to do UVA JMU fan reactions?
Let's do that first. And then
Okay.
I got news or snooze hops into Troy a lot.
Perfect. So fan reactions, we've opened up this new thing. It comes out every Saturday after the game. It's called Overreaction Corner. You go in, you can be anonymous or you can be yourself and just say your immediate thoughts after the game. This game, it happened perfectly because we went live. I had it all scheduled out because we were at the game. It went live during the rain delay. So some of the answers we got were pre-rain delay and post-rain delay. One of my favorite reactions, absolutely favorite reactions, was from Connor Ray. Stop calling screens on 3rd and long. And then after JMU won, they didn't throw screen passes in the 4th quarter. All I'm saying, fantastic.
That was pretty funny.
We had a lot of people not happy with the secondary. I won't read all of them. You see them up on the screen. For our podcast listeners, got to check out the pod on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. You can check the live stream. Just a lot of fans not happy with the secondary. We didn't get to this. If you had to put a panic level between 0 and 10 on the secondary, what's your number?
Probably a 5.
Okay, I'm at like a 7.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned. I also think that UVA has athletes at receiver that most teams on the schedule won't be able to replicate. They'll have some good receivers, but I think Malachi Fields and like Malik Washington are both very, very good. So I think that'll help a lot. I also think they're just going to get better as the season goes on. I thought they played poorly.
Yeah. John Doe III said, I don't feel confident about either side of the ball. Defense got cooked by an 18-year-old fetus, and McLeod could make passes when he scrambled away from his OL. I assume he couldn't.
I don't know.
Trenches are a bigger house of cards in the 07 housing market. John Doe III, the trenches point is wrong. both trenches were actually like really good in this game, and that's I think why JMU won.
I think JMU is just interesting in general, in that they're transitioning. And typically, I feel like a transitioning team might struggle the most in the trenches. I would say they're the best in the trenches, and they're kind of working toward fixing the secondary in this next recruiting class, which is kind of just fascinating to me. Where it's like, oh, they're pretty good in the trenches, but you could argue they have room to improve with like the back end of the defense.
Yeah. Some more overreactions we had. JMU, these were post-win. JMU will finish the season having the best run defense in the nation. Kurt Signetti, that was from Julian Williams. Kurt Signetti will win AP Coach of the Year. Liam Thunder done. Bennett gets a laugh out of that one. That was amazing.
I don't see that happening, but maybe if he figures out the fourth down decision making, then sure, he could win Kurt.
Yeah.
Kurt Signetti can win Coach of the Year.
Sure. David was saying that this was the best win he's ever seen at JMU. I wanted to get your take. I think this is a top 3, top 5 win for me at JMU. I think App, Weber, national championship in 2016. Since I've been a fan, 2016, UVA's up there.
Yeah, I thought the 2016 semifinal was even a better win than beating Youngstown in the title.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, the title meant more, but this is right up there. I also think UVA is not nearly as bad as people keep saying. I saw some people, maybe myself included, like early in the year being like, oh, that could be the worst Power 5 team in the country. They're not the worst Power 5 team in the country.
They're good.
They're not like, I don't know that they're making a bowl game because they got some tough games on there, but they're also, I was looking at this, they're 2-4 in one possession games under Tony Elliott now, dating back to last season. They played Drake May and UNC within a field goal last year, lost to Miami by 2 and 4 overtimes. Like they've come close a few times to winning some games. So I wouldn't be shocked if they go 4-8, but they're fairly competitive in their next 10.
Yeah, and the final thing of JMU reactions, a friend of mine, Tyler Reskovac, he called me right after the game ended in Scott Stadium. Of course, I didn't answer. Too busy celebrating the win, too busy screaming my head off. But the voicemail he left was absolutely epic. I texted him. I was like, can I please play this during the podcast? I think it just sums up all of the fans' reaction to it. He said, sure. So this is the voicemail I got. I sat down to listen to it when we got back to our Airbnb post game, and it just rushed back so many memories.
Jack, I know you're at the game right now, dude. What a game, dude! This is like App State last year all over again. What a game! What, dude? What a that fourth quarter! Oh my God! I know you enjoy your time in Charlottesville. Holy what a game. Duke's in the top 25 next week. What a game.
That was also my reaction. Like when we won, I just screamed for so long. It just felt, we were talking with the fans behind us at the UVA game, and they're like, I don't know why you guys care about this game so much. And I was like, well, there's so much to it. Like, I don't think a UVA fan truly understands like what went into that game. 40 years of not playing. UVA always kind of like being the better school over JMU. And like when people say you went to JMU, they're like, oh, your backup school. Oh, like you just missed UVA, all of this stuff. And then they beat them. Like for that 60 minutes of game time, JMU was the better football team. They were better. JMU was better.
If you look at the like UVA Twitter post game, and I have a lot of like that in my feed, there's just panic, man. Like that's why it's cool. That's why it's fun, because it meant a lot to UVA fans who pretended it didn't mean a lot to them.
Brandon
like
Lloyd, or whoever that guy was.
Yeah, because their program is like sort of, I don't know if I'd say in disarray, but they're not where they want to be at all. They're certainly not like the best team in the state. You could argue that they're the fourth best team in the state, with Liberty and Virginia Tech and JMU all above them. So I think that's concerning for them. It's a game that would have, like UVA fans were saying, could like flip their season. You win this one, and then it starts the momentum. You get the positive vibes. You lose it, and it dashes all bowl game hopes. Like Huge game for UVA that they ended up losing. JMU has now even the all-time series with UVA on the football field. Like, there's a lot of stuff here that matters. And then recruiting, if you're competing for some in-state recruits, it's pretty easy to say, not only did you come back to beat them, after the rain delay, there was more purple in the stands than orange and blue.
Yeah. Yeah. And even before
awesome.
the rain delay, like, there was a good amount of purple. It wasn't 20,000, but it was like 15, 10, like a lot more than I think JMU fans may have actually expected. It was awesome. It was electric.
Also, like, just generally speaking, the regional and like national respect for other Sunbelt teams and JMU is lower than it should be. Where, like, if you beat a Power 5, people are like, oh, they're pretty
Yes.
good. When you shouldn't have to beat a Power 5 to prove it. But now they've done that and sort of added to the credibility that JMU is a very good football program.
Yeah, and you said it a few times. College football should be fun. I had fun leading up to that week, talking with UVA media members, Greg Medea, Preston Willett, talking with David Teal, talking with the guys behind us at that football game, because it was college football. It was a team. You applied to UVA. You may not have gotten in. Maybe you did get in, and then you chose JMU. For the guys on the field, it was in-state Virginia kids who played against each other in middle school and high school. It meant a little bit more for the guys on the field. It meant more for the people in the stands. It was fun. Were there some probably little bit bad things being said between the two schools? Yeah, probably, but that just happens with any fan base, especially on social media. And then going into this week, we had the Troy Boyz on. They're just good to talk to. They had us cracking up. Like, they're fun. This game going into this week is fun. Like, that's what makes the Sun Belt great, because of these regional rivalries. It's what makes the college football great. And it's why JMU UVA needs to be more than a once every 40-year thing. It's why JMU and Virginia Tech has to be more than just an every 2-decade thing. It's why they should be playing these games, because it shouldn't matter as much about how it looks on your quote unquote resume when you're trying to impress the college football playoff committee. You know, it doesn't matter. UVA and Virginia Tech won't be in that discussion probably ever again. It's more likely that JMU will be in that discussion. So let's have some fun. Let's make college football fun again.
I'm with you, man. Perfect points. I think it's dumb too. Yeah, UVA fans like, oh, the perception of our program. You don't have any perception of being a good football program.
Did you see the one UVA alum? I think Andrew Hawkins was his name. Where
Ahmad Hawkins.
Ahmad Hawkins. Apologies. I think it was Brandon Lloyd was like, I can't. This is terrible for our perception. He was like, bro, JMU has better perception in the last 5 years than we've had. Like, you get to get off your high horse type of thing. And I was like, yeah, honestly.
He would know. He played for UVA. Talked to Ahmad like for a story before they had, snapped the streak against Virginia Tech, because he had a go ahead touchdown catch the last time they had beat them, which was 15 years earlier. Like, it's just silly for UVA fans to be like, oh, this doesn't look good for us. It's like, no, you don't understand. Like, JMU's been playing really good football for the last decade, and this was an evenly matched game for the most part, and JMU happened to win. You shouldn't be fearful of the result. If UVA had won, it would have been a very nice win for Tony Elliott and company.
As you could see by their fans absolutely panicking in their social media afterwards. Moving on from all of that, it's time for News or Snooze, presented by Christopher William Jewelers. Bennett gives me 3 quotes. I say if they're newsworthy or snoozeworthy, hit me.
First one from Francis Meehan. Based off of what we put on film, it wouldn't surprise me if they, referring to Troy, tried to put shot plays on us.
Yeah. Duh. You guys couldn't guard anything. What do you? Yeah, of course. They should. If they don't run shot plays, you should look at Summerall and see if he's throwing the game.
So is it news or snooze?
Oh, sorry. Snoozeworthy.
I think snooze too, but it was just cracking me up a little bit, where it's like, I think they're going to try to.
I think they're going to try and throw. I know we just let a freshman quarterback throw for 377. I think Troy's going to throw, though. Yeah, no. Yeah, of course. Your secondary's bad. Sorry,
I enjoyed Meehan's interview, because he's like, they love to run the ball, but yeah, they'll probably try to throw a little. And then I think Shane Metlin had asked him if there was a different vibe on campus after the UVA win, like people coming up to him, and he had a big smile. And he's like, maybe if I'm wearing a JMU football shirt, but I'm not that recognizable. People are coming up to me like, dude.
I love the humble. That's so true. I mean, Francis Meehan is a very good safety, but I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I don't know if we're sickos for JMU sports. I don't think I'd recognize him.
Yeah, he's wearing just like a gray t-shirt and D-Hall. People aren't like running over like Francis. That was a good one. All right, number 2. I promise you that was a C+ game in terms of how you'd like to see your team fly around and execute. Kurt Signetti on Jamie's performance against Virginia.
I mentioned this earlier, and because I mentioned it earlier without this segment, I'm going to say it's newsworthy. I did say I think they played an A+ game, a D- game, and then an A+ game. But I think it is worth noting that wasn't JMU's best game. They put up 36 points. But at the same time, like, you got to play an A+ game in that spot. And now you're like in a prime letdown spot. So let's not have back-to-back C+ games, please.
Yeah. All right. Third quote, angry Kurt Signetti. Today at practice, we were average, and it was a below average practice. There was no zip. There was no energy. There was no leadership. Execution was not good enough. The scout team wasn't good enough.
When he threw shots at the scout team, I was like, whoa.
Not giving us a good enough look. And you feel like you're just holding a dam. Kurt Signetti.
I'm surprised you didn't use his quote later where he was like, to get better, you have to be uncomfortable. There's too many people on this team who are comfortable. It's my job to make them uncomfortable. And I was like, whoa, this is like really intense. That quote, I think it's newsworthy. It's also just a hilarious quote because like it is so aggressive. He's calling out the scout team. He's doing all of this stuff. Can I read into that quote too much?
Sure.
I don't think he likes Jordan McLeod. And I have nothing to base this off of. Absolutely nothing except for this quote. I don't think he likes Jordan McLeod at all.
I think he's got issues with the defense because he keeps bringing up seniors, and like the safeties have been a position he's called out that's played probably the worst, and they're like all seniors. I think he's got beef with the senior safeties not playing to his level. I also kind of think that this is a fraudulent lie. I think the practice was probably fine.
Yes.
Because they asked some of the players who came in after, I think Tyshawn Wyatt and Meehan, they're like, yeah, pretty good. Like, we're ready for the week. And then they're like, well, Signetti said it was terrible. And they're like, I mean, yeah, we got to get like a little better. But I just don't think it was like a horrible practice. I think he's just trying to get their attention. So he said it on Tuesday. So Wednesday through Friday, they would be ultra locked in because it could have gone the other way. They could have easily lost the Virginia game.
Yes.
So they shouldn't get like ahead of themselves. But I don't know. I kind of just feel like he's trying to pump them up and inspire them a little bit, even though the practice was probably fine.
Yeah, I agree. Whew, that was a fun one. We had Troy. Oh,
sorry. I was just going to say I liked, you mentioned the discomfort quote. David Teal had a quick follow-up that like kind of got lost because like I don't think he had the mic, but he was like, what are you going to do to make them uncomfortable? And he had this huge smile. And he's like, I'll think about that tonight. It's like, oh my God. So whatever they did at Wednesday's practice was probably not a lot of fun.
Yeah, probably not at all. That's it for the JMU UVA preview. It just took 59 or about 50 minutes, and then we had the Troy Boyz sprinkled in there as well. But before we get to the Sunbelt Pick'em and wrap up as we get up on out of here, we have to quickly update about some shifts along the 2 deep.
Mm-hmm.
But also, it's time for the 3-notched weekly preview. Troy Trojans. Go back, listen to the Troy Boyz part of the podcast. If you somehow missed over that entire segment, I don't know if your audio player just skipped. But Troy comes into this one 1-1. Defense was kind of and has been their thing for so long. And this season, it seems like it may have taken a bit of a step back. They did lose their leading tackler from a year ago. They had a defensive coordinator shift, and they've just had some overall kind of schematic changes on their defensive side. Offensively, Gunnar Watson, he's still there. They're still going to run the ball a ton. They're kind of going to try and win the game by not making mistakes. Troy was picked to win the Sun Belt West, if I'm not mistaken, and they should be a very, very good team. What does JMU need to do, Bennett, for JMU to go to Troy, Alabama and win in a classic letdown spot?
It's tough. John Summerall, 8-0 at home as Troy's head coach, second-year guy. He's a big-time coach. They're a really good team. I think some of the things they've done well is limiting turnovers with Jordan McLeod at quarterback. They've done that well. If they can continue that, that's huge. Special teams this year, surprisingly good.
Amazing.
So if JMU can keep that up, that's huge. And then I think the number one sort of obvious one is you can't give up just gigantic, explosive pass plays like they did against Virginia. If you can stop that, Troy was winning a lot of kind of ugly, grinded out games last year in those big spots. I think they beat South Alabama 10-6. So it's one that I think Troy is beatable, but they're also good enough and sound enough on both sides that if you make a bunch of self-inflicted mistakes, it can get ugly in a hurry.
Yeah, but Troy there, it is a little interesting, but it's also really hard to judge how good Troy is due to the fact they played Stephen F. Austin week 1 and then ranked Kansas State in week 2. But it seems that their offense is the strength of this team right now. Like, the offense has, for the most part, performed a little bit better. I know Kansas State, they only put up 13, but the defense allowed a lot against Kansas State. And then I think Stephen F. Austin put up 30. I know Bennett is going to push back here and say, well, one of them was a fumble return for a touchdown, and there was an interception that set up a short field. I get all of that, but like, it's Stephen F. Austin. You still let them put up 30. Like, I don't think Troy's defense is nowhere. I don't think it's anywhere near as good as it was last year. I think their offense is actually what's going to have to win them this game, where if JMU played Troy last year, I think the defense would have had to win that game.
And if that's the case, I'm interested to see if Troy, which is a run first mentality, right? Would Troy, knowing that its offense might have to win the game, be willing to go to more of a pass heavy attack and go maybe against its identity to pick up a win, which Virginia at times did not seem willing to do? I think that's probably the biggest question we'll see on Saturday.
We have a few listener questions as well. This one is from Alex at Alex02975. Who will have the biggest impact on offense and defense this week against Troy? Bennett, you answer first.
Good question.
Great
on
question.
Offense. Kind of feel like we're due for like a big time Reggie Brown game where like we're looking at 5+ catches, 100+ yards. I think he's due for a big one, although Troy's got a big secondary. Impressive secondary, so we'll see. Defensively, this is a great question. I'm going to say that Aiden Fisher keeps up sort of his big time play, especially the Jalen Walker, maybe not 100%, maybe not even playing.
He's listed.
Aiden Fisher's a dog, man.
He's good.
He's really good. I think he'll have a huge game. And then you could probably pick anybody on the defensive line, which would also be a fair answer. They're very good.
Aiden Fisher from my hometown, Fredericksburg, Virginia. I think offensively it's going to be Jordan McLeod, and I know that's kind of a cop-out answer, but I think McLeod, this is the first Sun Belt game. I've been praising him as Sun Belt Offensive Player of the Year since the very beginning. I got off the bandwagon for a little bit. I'm back on. I think this is the type of game where he's going to throw for maybe 300, 2 tutties, maybe tack on another 50 yards rushing. I think this is a big game for him. Breakout game, and I think he's going to need to do that in order for them to win. Defensively, I'm going to say Taurus Jones. Taurus Jones has had better games. UVA was not his best game. That's probably not a game that he is going to put the tape on his huddle. That's one of the tapes he's going to burn. I think this is a bounce back game for him, and he is going to come up with double-digit sacks. No,
that'd be sick.
Double-digit tackles, maybe a TFL, maybe a PBU. But I think he is just going to make his presence felt in the middle of that defense and play really good complementary football to whoever is next to him as a linebacker. This one is from some kid named Dominic Palumbo. What would a win over Troy tell us, if anything, about what the expectations should be for the rest of the way? Do they change or stay the same? I'm going to have a very quick answer for this. I think if they win over Troy, the expectations stay the same.
If they beat Troy, I'm going to go like absurdly over the top and start thinking of like 11 or 12 wins. So I will overreact if they beat Troy.
Okay. I just think the expectation, in my opinion, my expectation for the team is to compete for the East. And if you beat Troy, you're competing for the East.
I think that's fair. Also worth noting that like maybe Utah State isn't as bad as we thought. They put up 78. I know they're playing Idaho State, but they did well, kind of hung in there.
That doesn't count. They got beat by Iowa and looked bad.
They hung in there reasonably.
Anyone can hang in with the Iowa offense.
That's fair. But like Marshall looked good against ECU. Georgia Southern's offense looks legit. The schedule's still very hard is my point. So even if you beat Troy, like you've got plenty of hard games left.
And from Oppie at _meerkat_1457. Do you think conservative play calling hurt the Dukes near the end of the first half?
Yeah, I thought Kurt Cignetti was taking his foot off the gas. I would love them to be like anytime they get inside the opponent's 50 and they have like 4th and 5 or shorter, they're like, we're rolling the dice. Like stuff like that where they're really trying to push and score.
I mean, analytically, yes, that is what you should do. Anytime you're in plus territory with a 4th and short, you should go for it. Like, statistically speaking, that adds to your win probability much more than a punt does.
Also, first down, man, just sling it. If they're crowding the box, like just do a play action pass.
Yeah. All right. It's time for everyone's favorite segment. You know it. You love it. It's the Sun Belt Weekly Pick'em. After last week, Bennett took the lead. Jack is 20-6. Bennett, you are 21-5.
Wow.
You beat me by 2 games. A really solid showing out of you. So we're going to head on over to sunbeltsports.org. Check out that football schedule, and we'll head up the Sun Belt Weekly Pick'em. Up first, it's Wake Forest at ODU. How did ODU get Wake Forest to come there?
I don't know. They've had some ACC teams visit them, which is pretty darn cool. And they've beaten Virginia Tech in the past. And, Jack, they're going to beat Wake Forest this weekend.
Is ODU not as bad as we thought?
They hung in there against Tech, and then who'd they beat? Louisiana?
Yeah, put like 38 up.
Wake also, missed some chances against Elon week 1 and then beat Vandy, but not that convincingly. I kind of think Old Dominion's got a really great opportunity here.
All right. I'm looking for a pen so I can write this down.
Go Monarchs, baby.
Found it. All right. I'm going to go Wake Forest in that game. I just can't get myself to take ODU.
That's fair.
All right. Next game, Georgia Southern at Wisconsin. Your boys, the Badgers. Can they bounce back after an absolutely detrimental loss to Washington State that some are calling the worst loss in Luke Fickell's career and one of the worst losses Bennett Conlon has ever seen in person?
In person on my TV screen. I think if Georgia Southern had a defense, they'd be like the best team in the Sun Belt.
I agree wholeheartedly. I was writing up the power rankings today, and I was like, holy crap, this offense is just so much better than everyone else.
But they can't really stop anyone. So I think Wisconsin will win. I think Wisconsin will run the ball, and Georgia Southern will not have quite enough firepower to keep up.
I'm going to go Georgia Southern.
Oh, another big upset.
They upset Nebraska last year. They got whoever that was the coach fired. Do they upset Wisconsin and get Luke Fickell fired in just his 3rd game? Probably not, but one can hope. East Carolina, they continue their run against Sun Belt schools. They head to Boone, North Carolina to take on App State. Who do you got?
I don't know if Mike Houston is ECU's coach next year. I'm going to go with App State in this one.
I don't know if Mike Houston knows how to coach an offense. They've put up 16 points this season.
They haven't really been a complete team since he's been there. Last year they scored a bunch and couldn't really defend. It's been weird.
Yeah, I'm going App as well because I just don't think ECU is that good. ULM, Texas A&M. Can a Sun Belt team take down Texas A&M for the 2nd straight year? App did it last year.
I was told on Twitter that ULM is one of the few teams with an inside track to a New Year's Six bowl, but I'm going to go with Texas A&M here.
It's funny because in my power rankings, they are not last. They're essentially last. Arkansas State is last. ULM is next. They are 2-0, but I am not sold on anything that they do. I don't think they have a good offense. I don't think they have a great defense. Give me Texas A&M with ease. Tulane at Southern Miss. Southern Miss fans are calling this like a must win.
That's fun. I'll say Tulane, although they hung in there really well against Ole Miss without Michael Pratt. So if Michael Pratt can play, that would be a boost this weekend. But Southern Miss, I think, is still a little bit away from looking like a Sun Belt contender.
I agree. I'm on Tulane as well. I don't think Southern Miss is that great. They just lost by like 53 to Florida State. And I know Florida State's great, but like if you want to be like a middle of the pack Sun Belt team, you got to lose by like 40.
Fair.
I've been dreading this game. I don't know which way I'm going to pick, man. Georgia State at Charlotte. Both of my boys.
Both your boys. I'm taking Georgia State here just to continue that Georgia State is a Sun Belt East sleeper trend.
Georgia State is a Sun Belt East sleeper, man. But Charlotte's got Biff Poggi. He doesn't wear sleeves.
I thought that was going to be a one-game thing. But
did you see Charlotte's 2 deep this week? I don't know why you would have.
No, I had not looked.
Quote, Biff Poggi said, every starting position on offense is up for grabs. Each starter on offense is listed with an or.
That's awesome.
Georgia State. Just because I think when you go into a game like that, I don't have high hopes.
What is that?
Louisiana at UAB.
I'll pick Louisiana, but I'm going to need to see a little something before. Like, it's tough to go from one of the best teams in the Sun Belt. You lose your coach to a Power 5, and then you're kind of just meh. I really thought they were going to beat Old Dominion last week, couldn't get it done. So maybe they bounce back here.
So you're going Louisiana. I'm going to go with the Fighting Trent Dilfers here.
Okay.
UAB. Stony Brook, Arkansas State.
What is this airing on?
I don't know. ESPN Plus.
Do you think anyone will watch it?
Let's quickly look. How has Stony Brook fared this
They
season?
suck. They also are bad. They're 0-2 with losses to Delaware and Rhode Island by a combined 44 points.
Okay, so Arkansas State should win.
You'd think.
Arkansas State has been outscored 110-3 this season.
You know how they do ESPN? They do the leading passer for either team, and they list them. It's Stony Brook's quarterback. He's got 302 passing yards, 1 touchdown, and 4 picks. So we're in for a treat between these two squads. I'll take Arkansas State.
I think I have to take Arkansas State, but I would not be shocked if Stony Brook just won this outright for no reason.
Butch Jones will be balling if that's the case.
Butch Jones may need to get fired if that's the case. Duquesne Coastal.
Coastal, baby.
Coastal, number 2 in my power rankings, number 1 in your heart, folks. South Alabama, Oklahoma State.
South Alabama finally delivers on the preseason hype with an outright win over Oklahoma State.
Wow, I'm going to go Oklahoma State because I've kind of sold my ticket on South Alabama. Jackson State, Texas State.
Texas State is going to get this one done. They were impressive against UTSA after beating Baylor. I don't know. I might be in on Texas State soon.
I think Texas State won't be a top-tier Sun Belt team. I don't think they'll be in the mix to win the Sun Belt West, but I think they're going to hover around 500 in the Sun Belt. I think they are going to be a very, very tough team to beat, and I think G.J. Kinney has really laid a really I know we're 2 games into the Kinney era, but I think he's laid a much better foundation than Everett Withers ever could have dreamt of laying. Give me Texas State. Troy, JMU, at Troy, pick and score.
I've got the Dukes 28-24. I don't know. It's going to be a tough one. I wouldn't be surprised if JMU loses at all. Troy's a very good football team, right? It's on the road. They haven't lost at home under Summerall. I just think Signetti's weird comments on Tuesday to me are very much a message of we just got to get a little extra edge because I think we can win the game. McLeod's playing well, distributing well. The offensive line, the defensive line is good. If you get any secondary play, JMU is a extremely tough team to beat. So I'm taking the Dukes.
So what was your score?
28-24, James Madison University.
Okay, I'm going to go JMU as well, but a 35-31 win.
Can't wait for this one.
I think whatever Blake Pace wrote a great betting preview over on jmusportsnews.com. I forget what he picked.
He's got the Trojans.
Would you go the over?
I think he went the over. I might lean that way just because I was a little confused by JMU's secondary. It's only 47 points. So yeah, I could definitely see it going over that.
Yeah, I like the over in it too. All right, perfect. That was a Sun Belt Weekly Pick'em, folks. Anything else you want to add before we get up on out of here? I mean, we previewed Troy. We talked about UVA. What a game it was. Some great play from the trenches. Secondary needs some work. But anything else you want to – we talked about men's soccer getting a draw with UVA. Anything else you got to add? Volleyball cooking.
Yeah. I'm just looking forward to the Troy JMU game. I think it's going to be a great one. I think it might be harder than the Virginia game in some regards.
I think Troy's better than UVA.
But if they get this one and get to 3-0, it would be an impressive start to the season.
All right. What if, before we get up on out of here,
yeah,
JMU is undefeated going into South Alabama? Where are they ranked, or are they ranked?
So they start 4-0 and they beat Troy and Utah State.
Yeah.
I think they sneak into the back of the top 25.
So you think like 24, or do you think just at 25?
24, 25. I could see him sneaking in there for sure. And then a little bit after that kind of depends, right? Can South Alabama beat Oklahoma State? Can Georgia Southern upset
Your
Wisconsin?
boys. Yeah.
Something there to give you a little extra push. Marshall also plays 2 ACC teams before JMU. So there's a chance, like if you can keep rattling off wins, you can definitely put yourself in the top 25.
Yeah. Well, for Bennett Conlon, my name is Jack Fitzpatrick. Dukes win the next 2 weeks. You got to rank them, folks. They just can't be RV in it. They got to be getting all the votes. So thank you so much for tuning in. This has been the JMU Sports News podcast presented by Bet Online. Wherever you listen, wherever you find us, be sure to like, rate, subscribe, whatever you need to do. We would greatly appreciate it. And follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, JMU Sports News. See you next week. Same time, same place.